Come on over, come on over. I want to talk to you today about Amazon Web Services versus Microsoft Azure versus Google Cloud. Which is the best small business cloud platform out there? Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of the Awesome Sweetie Kiwi Show. How are you today? I hope you are doing fantastic. I'm doing marvelous if you're to ask me. And if you are doing as great as I am, go grab a cup of coffee or tea or vodka and let's roll. Today's conversation will be very simple. We want to compare and contrast Amazon Web Services versus Microsoft Azure versus Google Cloud. The thing here is that before we get into the comparison, let's have a short convo about how to select the right cloud service provider. You need to be very clear about your business's needs. You need to have an idea of what you're looking for in terms of storage, in terms of integration, in terms of collaboration. This is very important. And I'm going to give you a list of 8 consideration criteria, 8 consideration areas you need to focus on when it comes to picking the right small business cloud platform. And when do you have to do this? Before you can effectively select a suitable provider, you got to understand your specific business needs, right? I mean, pretty obvious. It seems obvious. But clarifying your specific requirements and minimum expectations in advance of assessing providers ensures you are comparing them all against your checklist instead of comparing one against the other. It's very important, folks. You want to have a clear list of your expectations so that when you are looking out there for the best provider, you are actually comparing their services against your expectations. Don't do a versus. I'm giving you the pros and cons of each provider, but at the end of the day, before you make a decision, you got to know exactly what you're looking for. So here are 8 key areas for consideration when it comes to picking a cloud service provider. Number 1. Certifications and standards, very important. So providers that comply with recognized standards and quality frameworks demonstrate an adherence to industry best practices and standards, very important. Number 2, technologies and service roadmap. So you want to make sure the provider's platform and preferred technologies align with your current environment and or support your cloud objectives. For the service roadmap, you want to ask about the provider's roadmap of service development. How do they plan to continue to innovate and grow over time? And does this roadmap fit your needs in the long run? You constantly have to match your expectations versus what the providers is planning to do in the future. Number 3, you need to think about data management. Number 4, information security. Number 5, vendor relationships. So service providers may have multiple vendor relationships that are important to understand, right? So you want to assess the provider's relationship with key vendors, their accreditation levels, technical capabilities, and staff certifications. The next one, you need to have subcontractors and service dependencies. Very, very important. I also want you to think about contract commercials and SLAs. So cloud agreements can appear complex, and you want to have a provider that is very clear, whether it is Microsoft Azure or Amazon or Google Cloud. You want to have a clear understanding of their contracts, the agreements, and the SLAs. Service delivery, data policy and protection, business terms. Now, the 3 biggies I'm talking to you today, they're biggies. They are industry leaders, but there are differences in the way they actually implement their contract. So you want to pay attention to that. So you want to pay attention to the legal protections, service level agreements. So in terms of service level objectives, the remediation policies and penalties related to those objectives, and exclusions and caveats. And also cloud commercials. So each cloud service provider has a unique bundle of services and pricing models. So you want to be very clear on that as well. Disaster recovery. So we want to pay attention now to reliability and performance. So you want to think about disaster recovery. Very important. How do they actually, how the providers is the provider is able to recover your what are his or her recovery provisions, the processes, and their ability to support your data preservation expectations. For example, recovery time objectives. We also want to talk about exit provisions. So when it comes to choosing when it comes to choosing between Amazon Web Services versus Microsoft Azure versus Google Cloud, you want to be very clear about their migration support, the vendor lock, and the vendor lock-in and exit planning. Because vendor lock-in, in case you're not familiar with the term, is a situation in which a customer using a product or service cannot easily transition to a competitor. So all the biggies in the industry, they have actually been trying to do this. You know, if you are with Amazon, then you want to migrate to Azure or to Google Cloud, there is a problem. So you want to really read the contract very specifically. And exit provisions. This is an important element also. So we're showing you right now on the screen all the three. So Amazon versus Azure versus Google Cloud. We're showing you on the screen right now the snapshots of their websites and how they actually present their products and services. Take a look now. So we have Amazon first with a link to their platform, their cloud platform, and then we have Azure second with a link to the specific platform, and we have Google Cloud platform, the GCP. All right, now let's talk about the key strengths. So each selecting one cloud vendor over the others will come down to the wants and needs of your company, right? And the workloads that you are running. It's often the case that organization will use multiple providers within different parts of their operations or for different use case, which is called a multi-cloud approach. Now, if you're a small business or you're a solopreneur out there, chances are you are going to pick only one. So there are a number of key differentiating factors that separate the approaches of the three firms, which can help end users consider which is right for them. First, Amazon. So Amazon is really the market leader here. They're still going strong thanks to the breadth and depth of the company's services. So nearly you have 200 across compute, storage, database, analytics, networking, mobile, developer tools, management tools, IoT, security, and enterprise applications. And this was as of March 2021. So without a doubt, the market leader, Amazon, often wins on developer functionality due to the breadth of its services as a result of its first move advantage. And they've done a great job, really. When you think about it, they've done a great job at actually translating the scale of their business into economic benefits for customers, although there are times where cloud can be cost prohibitive. And one challenge is pricing on Amazon, where many companies don't fully understand the metrics and the impact on architectural decisions and the cost to support certain services. Now let's move on to Microsoft. Now, this is a popular choice with C-level executives that have long-standing relationships with the vendor and know that they can consume a great deal of their enterprise computing needs all in one place, from, say, productivity and enterprise software all the way down to flexible cloud computing resources for their developers, right? With one hand to shake, only one. So this is a strong number two to Amazon, thanks to its combination of Azure, Office 365, and Teams. And Microsoft is often seen as the safe global bet, but most clients have more than one cloud vendor again. And the third, but not the least, we have a Google. So now, naturally, all three vendors are strong in machine learning, as they can draw on deep wells of internal research and development expertise. But this is, when it comes to machine learning, this is one area where Google often stands out as customers look to tap into the magic that powered the search giant at unprecedented scales over the last couple of years, actually. And the good thing here is that Google often stands out for its deep expertise around open source technologies, right? Especially containers, thanks to its central role in the development of Kubernetes for orchestration and the Istio service mesh, which are quickly becoming industry standard technologies. Very important. So and so Google is pretty strong when it comes to AI and machine learning capabilities, along with translate, search, and security, which really has been. I mean, they have received rave reviews in the last few years for that, for those features. Let's talk about features and services. So at the core, Amazon, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud Platform offer largely similar basic capabilities around flexible compute, storage, and networking. When you're thinking about a cloud solution, you have to think about this trifecta: flexible compute, storage, and networking. So those three biggies, they share the common elements of a public cloud. So self-service and instant provisioning. You have auto scaling. You have security, compliance, and identity management features. So all three vendors have launched services and tools targeted at cutting-edge technologies around the IoT, the Internet of Things, and serverless computing. So you have Lambda for Amazon. You have functions with Azure and Google. Well, you also have customers who can tap either cloud to variously build a mobile app or even create a high-performance computing environment depending on their needs. And one thing we have seen in our research is that machine learning has also been a booming area in the great cloud computing arms race as of late. So a few years ago, Amazon launched SageMaker as a way to simplify the adoption of machine learning by bringing together really a hosted environment, right? So for Jupyter notebooks with built-in model management, automated spin-up of training environments using EC2 instances, and HTTPS endpoints for things like hosting capabilities with Amazon S3. Okay, and Amazon has also done a great job in terms of integrating its offer. So today they have a broad set of off-the-shelf machine learning services for use cases like image recognition. So this is what they call the AWS recognition. They have text-to-speech deep learning models, the Poly, and the engine that powers Alexa, the Lex. So that's for Amazon Web Services. Now, Microsoft Azure machine learning allows developers to write, test, and deploy algorithms, as well as access a marketplace for off-the-shelf APIs. And Google is also coming strong. They are working hard now. So Google offers a one-stop shop AI platform, which helps machine learning engineers build and deploy models based on its popular open source TensorFlow deep learning library. And the cool thing here is that the recent buzz around containers is catered for as well, with all three providers offering managed services like around popular container services like Kubernetes. I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another section of the Awesome Sweetie Kiwi Show. I've been talking to you about Amazon Web Services versus Microsoft Azure versus Google Cloud. And I've been giving you the key strengths of the three of this trifecta. And I also talked about the features and services of the trifecta. Now let's talk about compute, storage, databases, and networking. For compute, Amazon's main offering is its EC2 instances, which can actually be tailored with a large number of options, really. And the EC2 instances are so great because they provide related services such as Elastic Beanstalk for app deployment, the EC2 container service, the ECS for Kubernetes, the EKS, and the Amazon Lambda and auto scaling. And meanwhile, Azure's computing offering is centered around its virtual machines, the VMs, with other tools such as cloud services and resource manager to help deploy applications on the cloud, and its Azure auto-scaling service. And Google is also working hard here. So Google's scalable compute engine delivers VMs in Google's data centers, and those data centers and all those VMs, the Google VMs, are quick to boot, come with persistent disk storage, promise consistent performance, and are highly customizable depending on the needs of the customer. So this is something you have to think about, whether or not it applies to your particular business situation. And all three providers that we are reviewing in today's show support relational databases. That's Azure's SQL database, Amazon Relational Database Service, Redshift and Google Cloud SQL, as well as NoSQL databases with Azure, Documents DB, Amazon's DynamoDB, and Google's Bigtable. And Amazon storage includes its simple storage, the S3, Elastic Block Storage, the EBS, the Elastic File System, EFS, the Import-Export Large Volume Data Transfer Service, the Glacier Archive Backup and Storage Gateway, which integrates with on-premise environments. And when it comes to Microsoft, the Azure, the offering are pretty cool here too. It includes the core Azure Storage Service, the Azure Block Storage, as well as table, queue, and file storage. It also offers site recovery, very important, especially if you run a global business. You also have import and export and Azure backup. And all three of those players typically offer excellent networking capabilities with automated server load balancing and connectivity to on-premise systems, which brings us to the hybrid options. Let me quickly talk to you about hybrid options. In the world of cloud platforms, hybrid options are very important. And this is one of the growing trends that we have seen among the hyperscale public cloud providers in the past year. And the customers are paying more attention now to hybrid and multi-cloud needs. Okay, and this tends to apply where customers are deploying across multiple vendors' infrastructure and also need to maintain some applications on premise. Again, here I'm talking more to small and medium-sized businesses or large companies that have global operations or that have operations across multiple states. If you are in the United States, for example, right? One thing that's very important is that vendors have responded with a range of solutions to help serve the customers who are not ready to jump all in one on public cloud just yet, which is, of course, the majority of large companies, right? So Microsoft has been the go-to options for hybrid deployments among the big three with its well-established Azure stack. And this process provides customers with the hardware and software required to deploy Azure public cloud services from a local data center with a shared management portal, code, and APIs for simple interoperability. Amazon also has done a great job on this front, so they have signaled their first serious move into hybrid deployment at their reInvent conference in 2018 with the launch of Outpost, which is basically, if you look at it structurally, it's a fully managed service where the vendor delivers pre-configured racks to your premises where Amazon Web Services can be run as though it were in their data center. Think about that. That's fantastic. And Google also made its own push into hybrid in 2019 with the release of Anthos, which is basically a rebranding of Google Cloud Services platform. And what they've done is that they are bringing together now a combo of the existing Google Kubernetes engine, the GKE on-prem, and the Anthos config management console. So this promises unified administration. So you have synchronized administration, you have synchronized policies, and you have synchronized security across hybrid Kubernetes deployments. And so this is kind of an important. The thing here is that Google, Amazon, and Microsoft Azure are only responding to the needs of small and mid-sized and large companies. Large companies specifically truly want to train the people once on a set of technology so that they can deploy anywhere, right? And right now, the industry is recognizing that none of the other cloud providers except Microsoft is doing that. All right. So you want to really think about whether or not, when it comes to the hybrid, whether or not this is basically a solution for your company. And again, going back to what I said at the beginning of this show, you need to have a list of expectations, and those expectations should drive the decision making when it comes to choosing either a single hosting or a hybrid option when it comes to your when it comes to your cloud needs. Let's now quickly talk about pricing. Very important here. Pricing can be a huge attraction for those considering a move to the cloud, and with good reason. There has been a continued downward trend on prices for some time now as the big providers compete, right? Because you have this is a buyer's market. In general terms, prices are roughly comparable, especially since Amazon shifted from by the hour to by the second pricing for its EC2 and EBS services in 2017, bringing it into line with Azure and Google platform. However, making a clear comparison here can be tough because all three offer slightly different pricing models, discounts, and make frequent price cuts. Of course, not all customers will pay the sticker price either, right? Especially at the enterprise level where volume discounts can be negotiated with sales reps. And so we're showing you right now the link to Amazon Web Services. They have a price calculator here, and you can go to that link. So we have the snapshot as well as the link for Amazon Web Services, and we are actually showing you the same for Microsoft. So Microsoft has a pricing calculator, and we have the link on the screen right now. So you can click on that and go to that page, and you enter your company's data, your needs, and the system will give you an idea of the price. And we also have Google. We have done the same thing for Google, so you can see here on the screen. So we have the pricing Google Cloud pricing calculator here. The cool thing here is that all three vendors, they offer free introductory tiers, which allows customers to try their services before they buy, and they typically offer credits to attract innovative startups onto their platforms, as well as always free tiers with strict usage limits. At the end of the day, making a decision here will depend on your needs, and it depends on the operational stage your company is in. Are you a startup? Are you an established business? Are you a growing company? Are you a company that is global, right? So you have to look at the operational dynamics of your company to determine really at the end of the day which cloud provider do you dig? Which one responds clearly to the needs of your company? And this is where you have to make that decision. I also want to talk about the customers here because obviously those three are big players. They are global multinationals, and a high profile user base may not be the main reason for choosing your cloud provider, but it can help more cautious organizations understand how the public cloud is benefiting others in their sector. So you got to think about your competitors, and you have to know where they are. You have to know which provider they are currently using. This could help. And this is clearly a strong point for Amazon Web Services because it has increasingly taken on large customer deals. For example, although the United States Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, eventually signed a contract with IBM, it awarded Amazon a contract to build its private cloud in a one-off deal in 2013, which could be seen as a symbolic moment for potential buyers, right? If the US government and the CIA of all agencies is choosing Amazon, this is a mark, this is an accolade of quality. So a long-standing Amazon customer is Netflix, which eventually decided to shut all its data centers in a final move to the cloud in 2016. But aside from web pioneers, Amazon Web Services has been truly successful in convincing more traditional businesses to move to the cloud. Okay, so you have biggies such as AstraZeneca, you have News Corp, Airbnb, you have Nasdaq, you have Nike. So you have a long list of very prestigious organizations that have chosen to go with Amazon Web Services. Microsoft Azure perhaps has a fewer, as of the date of this show, they have fewer high-profile users, with most of the messaging from the vendor appearing to be around its widely used software as a service tools, the SaaS tools. All right. But again, this is a company that Microsoft is really, really great. They're constantly bringing in new customers, new biggies. So you have the Ford, the NBC News of the world. You have Pearson, you have EasyJet, to name but a few. And one of Microsoft's highest profile customers wins came in late 2019 when they actually signed a hugely controversial deal for the 10 billion U.S. Department of Defense Joint Enterprise Defense Infrastructure contract known as GETTY, which Amazon continues to dispute. All right, so they are actually fighting, and Google hasn't quite had the same level of enterprise success thus far, but has notched up some key wins in recent years. Especially, they're currently hosting Spotify. That's fantastic. They're also hosting Citibank. They're doing JP Morgan Chase, HSBC. So, what's the bottom line here? The bottom line here is that whether the company has big clients in its roster doesn't really matter. You have to think about your needs. You have to think about what your rivals, where your rivals are hosting their cloud, their data on the cloud, and make a determination based on those two criteria, along with price, along with your current needs. I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to another section of the Awesome Sweetie Kiwi Show, folks. We're still having a conversation here about Amazon Web Services versus Azure versus Google Cloud. Let's talk about the pros and cons. What are the pros and cons of Amazon Web Services? So Amazon, as mentioned before, the reasons for picking one vendor over another will differ for each customer, right? But there are aspects of the competing clouds that will offer benefits in certain circumstances. When you really think about Amazon Web Services, the breadth and depth of their offering is a big plus, is a big pro. And Amazon had a head start in the competition, building out its suite of cloud services since 2006. And all of these are built to be enterprise friendly so that they will appeal to CIOs, the chief information officers, as well as its core audience of developers. And Amazon ranks highly on platform configuration options, monitoring and policy features, security and reliability. And its partner ecosystems and general product strategy are also seen as a market leading process. And its Amazon Marketplace has a large number of third-party software services. This is very important. So those are the pros, right? Now, having said that, one area Amazon falls short to some degree is its hybrid cloud strategy, where it has tended to be dismissive of the benefits of on-premise private clouds. And so basically, this is something that you have to think about. So this is one con. Another con is the scale of its offering. So while having these options to pick from is attractive, it can be very difficult to navigate the large numbers of features that are on offer, and some see Amazon as being a complex vendor to manage. And so despite being broadly positive about Amazon Web Services as the market-leading cloud provider, people are also saying that certain companies may not want to line the pockets of Amazon as the giant parent company continues to expand and compete in a growing area of industries such as healthcare and financial services, right? So if you are a Walmart of the world, you don't want to actually move to Amazon because you are seeing Amazon encroaching on your turf in retail, for example. All right, so this is something you have to really think about. Let's talk about the pros and cons of Microsoft Azure. So the big pull for Azure here is where Microsoft already has a strong footing within an organization and can easily play a role in helping those companies transition to the cloud. So Azure naturally links well with a key Microsoft on-premise systems such as Windows Server, System Center, and Active Directory. All right, so we actually there was a survey by Goldman Sachs in January 2020, and they actually interviewed 100 senior IT executives, and 56 out of the 100 said they preferred Azure versus 48 who opted for Amazon Web Services. And so companies that are strategically committed to Microsoft technology generally choose Azure as their primary IaaS plus PaaS provider. And the cool thing here is that Microsoft has also become increasingly open to open source technologies, with around 50% of its workloads now running on Linux. And so that's the pros. What about the cons? There has been a series of outages over the years, including a major global outage in May 2019. And so you have to be very, very careful. And a lot of experts are saying that you should consider disaster recovery capabilities away from Azure for critical applications hosted in the cloud. And one thing I want to say though is that Amazon Web Services is not immune to downtime, but they suffered their last major outage in 2017, and Google Cloud had a major outage of its own in November 2019. So this is things you have to really think about. And one thing we also have seen in terms of the drawbacks of using Microsoft Azure is that companies frequently lament the quality of Microsoft technical support, along with the increasing cost of support and field solution architects. And so basically this negatively impacts customer satisfaction and really slows Azure adoption and therefore customer spending. So again, this is when it comes to customer service, Microsoft still needs to do a lot of work, making sure that they are not only taking care of the developer community, but also taking care of the end user here. I want to talk to you now about Google Cloud Platform, the pros and cons. So we all know Google has a good track record with innovative cloud native companies and has a solid standing in the open source community, that's for sure. But the thing is that they have traditionally struggled to break into the enterprise market. And so Google Cloud generally appeals to certain buyers thanks to its strengths in big data and other analytics applications, machine learning projects, cloud native applications, or other applications optimized for cloud native operations. So one thing I want to say here is that the GCP, Google Cloud Platform's go-to-market strategy has been actually focused on proving itself on smaller, innovative projects at large organizations rather than becoming a strategic cloud partner. So increasing the breadth of its partnership, for example, and supporting pre-cloud businesses and IT processes will need to become emphasis areas if Google Cloud Platforms wants to attract more traditional enterprises. Very important. So this is something that they have to, it is a strategic move, if you will, for them. And they need to know exactly, they need to have a clear vision of what they want to offer customers in a number of industries who are going through digital transformation. And one thing we have seen in terms of the cons here is that Google actually has shown a level of immaturity of processes and procedures when dealing with enterprise accounts. I'm talking about the big accounts, which can make the company difficult to transact with at times. And this can be attributed to Google's nascent focus on the enterprise market. So the immaturity of the process is most pronounced in areas such as contract negotiation, discounting, independent software vendor licensing, integration with enterprise systems, and support. Okay, so this is something that, but again, the cool thing here is that they know it, they're working on it, and they are aggressively moving forward to actually actually narrow the gap, right? And one thing I also want to say here is that Google Cloud Platform has the smallest footprint on global instances of the big three and also has no presence in one of the world's biggest markets, China. Amazon Web Services and Microsoft Azure, on the other hand, have regions in mainland China, which are owned and operated by Chinese third-party partners. So this is something that you have to really think about. All right, folks. What is the bottom line here, and who's the winner? Who is the winner? What is our verdict? Here are final scores. Amazon Web Services, 10 over 10. Microsoft Azure, 9.5 over 10. Google Cloud Platform, 8 over 10. So our pick here, the winner, is Amazon Web Services. So in very broad terms, Amazon Web Services continues to lead the way in terms of offering the widest range of functionality and maturity, really. It continues to be the clear market leader, but the gap is closing. So its expensive list of tools and services, along with its enterprise-friendly features, make it a strong proposition for large organizations. All right. Now, meanwhile, its huge and continuously growing infrastructure provides economies of scale that enable aggressive price cuts. So, if large organizations have adopted Amazon Web Services, it's pretty safe to say that a small entity or a solopreneur can also trust Amazon Web Services. But it appears that Microsoft has started to bridge the gap between the two and will continue to do so with its ongoing investment in building out the Azure cloud platform and further plans to strengthen ties with its on-premise software. So for organizations, large organizations, small businesses, solopreneurs, sole proprietorships, entrepreneurs out there who are already heavily invested in Microsoft in terms of technology and developer skills, of which there are undoubtedly many, Microsoft Azure will continue to be a strong proposition. So if you are currently using Microsoft Office 365, you're currently using Microsoft servers, Microsoft products and services, it might make sense to consider Microsoft Azure. Then we have the third provider here, Google. Now, Google could actually prove a more serious enterprise competitor under its new leadership. And, it was already making good progress with certain customers, especially with its Kubernetes and machine learning expertise. But they have much more work to do to prove itself as a viable enterprise option, but also a viable option for small businesses too, for solopreneurs as well. At the end of the day, the choice is yours. You have to really understand what your needs are, what your expectations are, and then trying to find the best provider for your business. But our pick today is Amazon Web Services. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. I will see you next time. But until then, remember, stay marvelous.